Part 2 of hanging this little cabinet here. I need to drill some holes in this cleat that I made in part 1, and then we can get to mounting this on the wall and hanging the thing. If you haven't seen part 1, go to my playlist and watch part 1 first, and then you'll get a background on this little hutch here, and then come back here to part 2. Let's go. You're watching On the Mark with Mark. Well, I'm out here in the garage where I have my drill press, where I've gone from one extreme to another. It was 100 degrees, well, 90 degrees out here all summer, pretty much. Now it's 28 degrees, which is just as not fun. Now for my French cleat, I need to drill 2 holes, this small diameter here all the way through. And then I only brought these 2 drill bits, and I've got this little Forstner bit here, and I'm gonna drill the counter bore so that the head of the screw will lay flush so that that doesn't hold the shelf away from the wall. There we have it. All right, that went well. Back in the house now. Oh, look at that. That's for another video. Okay, I've marked the location where my cleat needs to go so that this ends up at the proper height. You know, not too high for my wife. She's only 5'5". And also that right distance away from the corner so that this actually fits into that cleat place. So I'm going to use a Forstner bit to cut through the drywall here. It needs a 1/2 inch diameter hole for this toggle bolt to fit through. And then I'm going to hook up just one of them, and I'll tighten it down pretty good, and then I'm going to leave it up like that, and then I'm going to set the shelf on it, and it'll pull it down so that it matches whatever angle that is perfectly, and then I'll lift it off, and then I'll mark that hole, and then I'll drill the other one. So that's the plan. That went through very neat. While I'm working on this, why don't we look at some more of those pictures of how I made this mitered glass cornered curio shelf. All right, then we'll get right back to this. In part 1 of this video, I made the crown mold, but it was too short. So this is my second attempt at the crown mold, and I'm pretty sure I've got it plenty long this time. You can see I got it all stacked up, very similar to the first time, but this is way longer, and I've got it on my miter sled here and got a nice 45 cut in it, and now I'm going to put it onto my clamps there and get it glued up good and tight. Got a nice tight fit there with 45 degrees. Now here I'm getting ready to put the rabbet in the top, because I don't want that just open like that, because if we want to display something on top of this cabinet, then it would fall down in here 1.5 inches, and you would see less of it this way. This also made it so that there's a cavity in there, there's a void. And what I did was, before I glued that piece of plywood on the top, I actually slipped those plans that you saw in part 1 into this little void here. So this cabinet's got a little kind of a time capsule built into it. I don't know if anybody will hack into it to be able to get that out. You got to destroy the cabinet to do it. Of course, in this picture, I'm gluing the crown mold on, and I left it on long. I didn't try to cut it first and then glue it on. plenty of clamps there. And then I came back after it was glued on. You can see I got it on my miter sled here, and we trim it nice and flush. This is one way you can be sure to get a good fit. So it's looking nice. And there's the top glued in now. I rounded the corners on the plywood. And like I said, that plan is inside there. Here is a fixture I made to be able to cut off part of the bottom shelf. And I've got my stacked dado heads in here. So I'm going to be able to hog out a lot of material here to make it so that that little gusset that I put on the inside corner of the door has room to slide underneath of the shelf. There you can see it. I took out a big chunk of my fixture here as the blade went through, but got my shelf trimmed off nice and straight. And there it is. It's the same size as the actual cabinet below it. And then here's that gusset, which is now going to be able to just slide right underneath of there. Then when it's shut, you don't even notice that this part of the shelf isn't the same thickness. So I thought that worked out pretty well. There's another part that's missing here. There's going to be small pieces of wood that get nailed in here with brads that hold the glass in. So when the door is shut, there's actually, this will be more flush across here. So there it is. Now I'm getting the other shelves mounted here. And a good way to get these in here nice and parallel and at the same height is I just made these spacers here and slid those in there so the shelves could sit right on there. Then I clamped it down real good and then drilled holes and screwed it in from the back side. So these two bottom ones are spaced evenly, and then the top one is just something close to a third. I let that just run out to what it needed, to whatever was left over. And there's the screws from the backside. So those today could still be removed. You could take those shelves out of there. There's no glue holding those in. And it looks like the woodworking is done here. It's not a bad looking cabinet even before painting. Oh, one thing was left. The crown mold is sticking up a little bit above the top of the cabinet, and I didn't want that. So I came back and, well, you can see how I had to stack up a bunch of stuff over here to get my sled to be, in fact, I got the sled sitting on here backwards, and then I needed this small piece of a door and then these pieces of stone here holding up the cabinet itself, and zipped those off. Now here on my catcher table, I've got my back-to-back clamps put on here, and you can tell by all the glue on these that I've gotten a lot of use out of these. In fact, we bought these when we first got married, and I used these a lot for refinishing our kitchen table that we have. You'll see it in later in these pictures. But this is clamped onto the side of my catcher table. And when I built the catcher table, the tabletop it sticks over the edge just the same thickness as these back-to-back clamps, so that I can clamp things onto the side of this cabinet to be able to sand on the top. Now, I used these when I refinished all of the kitchen drawers. And so I clamped the drawers on here, and then the face of the drawer would be pointing up, and I could get after it with my sander. And there it is. There's also, I always keep this little piece of wood. There's a strip of wood right here. You can kind of see it down here. These clamps will dent wood, and I didn't want to see those dents in there. In fact, I reuse these. There's a hole there. These hang on a hook on my pegboard. So there it is, nice at working height, and boom, sand it off. nice and flush. There's all the pieces. You can see them there. Actually sanded through one layer of the plywood, of that 1/4 inch plywood on the top. And there's the cardboard on the catcher table, which can only mean one thing. It's time to paint this. I don't recall if I used a primer on this or if that's just the first coat, but first coat or primer, it's the first coat. And then up here you can see I'm getting the polyurethane on the shelves, so they're hanging up above. Possibly a second coat right there. Looking like a finished coat now. And these are the strips of wood that are going to hold the glass in, so those needed to be painted too. And it looks like it is finished. I've got the door off by the hinge pins, and then this cabinet has had a few things removed from it, and I'm going to drill some holes and screw this cabinet onto the side of this kitchen cabinet and screw it in from the back side. That's what's going to be holding this up. And there it is. So we were very happy with this. And you can see it matches the hutch that my father-in-law built and our kitchen tables and chairs. There it is. This is my wife's mother's china in here. That's a teapot and cream and sugar up above. It's very nice against the white. And now there's a coffee pot on top, and because I added that piece of 1/4 inch plywood on the top, it sits up there nice and high so you can see it instead of sitting down 1.5 inches lower, so you'd see less of it. Isn't that just a beautiful looking kitchen? This is a pine floor that I also milled myself and put in. A few different things now. With the teapot on the top. There it is. Just beautiful. All right, let's get back to hanging this cabinet. Okay, I have that in there, and it just wants to drag a little bit. So now I'm going to hang that shelf up there. Okay, look at that. All tightened up, French cleat on the wall, French cleat on the back of the cabinet. There it is, hanging on the wall. Nice. There's a magnet that holds that shut, and the top of this is ready to have things put up here too, because it's a horizontal surface and you know stuff's going to get put up there. So anyway, long time coming.
that just about covers it. Thanks for watching both parts of my video on the construction of this mitered cornered glass cabinet here. If you liked watching this video, please hit that like button, and as always, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing. Good.